Hi, everyone. My name is Tina Cason, and this is my PowerPoint presentation on depression in the DSM-5 and metaframeworks. First, I wanted to start off by showing a quick video on 10 things depression makes us do. I think this is a cute animated video that really shows the impact of depression on people.
Depression affects many of us around the globe. According to the World Health Organization, 300 million people battle with it. Depression is a sneaky mental disorder. It's difficult to catch during the early stages. Most of us realize we have depression when we're deep. Those with this mental disorder feel hopeless, empty, sad, fatigued, irritable, and restless. Depression not only takes your motivation away, but you can have problems concentrating. Those of us with this disorder can actually worsen the situation. Here's a list of 10 things depression makes you do. 1. Isolation. Individuals with depression isolate themselves for different reasons. Some keep to themselves because they feel overwhelmed socializing, and others believe it's better to be alone. In other cases, the person may feel so much self-hatred that they prefer to not interact. Those with severe depression may even stay in their house for weeks. 2. Being disorganized. Depression makes you feel exhausted, so cleaning up neat your home becomes heavy dishes and clothes start piling up, garbage is overflowing the trash. It becomes an even bigger physical challenge to walk around your room because everything is on the floor. Living in a cluttered place makes you feel uneasy, but doesn't help. 3. More hygiene. Depression zaps all your energy. It's difficult enough to get out of bed, so showering, brushing your teeth, washing your hair, and taking care of it goes up and down. Those without depression may see this behavior as lazy. But the truth is, showering or changing into clean clothes is exhausting and painful. 4. Struggling to sleep. Depression affects your sleeping schedule. Some of you stay up and sleep very little. It keeps up with your intrusive, unwanted thoughts. These may end up making you feel anxious all through the night. In other cases, some of you will sleep excessively and still feel unrested. 5. Catastrophizing every situation. Depression plays tricks on your minds, making you believe negative things. It can get to a point where you're constantly looking out for bad things to reassure your pessimistic group. Every time something bad happens, you use it as evidence to prove how bad life is. This slippery slope makes it difficult to see life under a brighter light. 6. Terrible eating habits. Those with depression will either eat too much or hardly anything at all. Some of you find yourself in a kitchen. You don't know the emptiness or sadness or feelings. Others don't have an appetite. You may even feel disgusted by food. In other cases, some of you may feel so exhausted that the thought of preparing a meal is lack of motivation. Depression steals your interests and desires right from under you. Your favorite pastimes and hobbies no longer satisfy you. Finally, you find yourself feeling dead. You can act harmful actions. Depression by itself is overwhelming. You can feel devastated and out of control most days. So trying to face situations and problems head on makes difficult time. Instead, you ignore or set the problem aside. And this in turn can bring trouble because it will continue to harm. Feeling guilty and feeling self-hatred. If you allow depression to take over your thoughts, then you'll most likely feel self-hatred. You continue to talk down to yourself, and this often leads to the development of self-esteem issues along with poor self-image. Eventually, you believe you aren't worth it anymore. Some people with this mental disorder can even feel guilt by thinking all their problems are. And 10. Living in fear. People with depression fear that terrible things will happen to them. In severe cases, some of you will sabotage a good situation, believing that it will turn bad. Other times, individuals will reject opportunities and stop pursuing their dreams. It's a twisted way to protect yourself, because this prevents you from living and achieving amazing things. Depression affects us in different ways. The list mentioned in this video contains some of the common behaviors. In the list, most of the common.
According to the DSM-5, depression is listed in a separate chapter under depressive disorders. Depressive disorders are mood disorders that include depression as a diagnosable condition. Several disorders fall under the category of depression. These disorders include major depressive disorder, persistent depressive disorder, also referred to as dysthymia, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, substance/medication-induced depressive disorder due to another medical condition, other specified depressive disorders, and unspecified depressive disorders. Each separate depressive disorder has its own classifications with symptoms and severity specifiers. Diagnostic criteria for depression according to the DSM-5. The DSM-5 outlines the following criteria to make a diagnosis of depression. The individual must be experiencing 5 or more symptoms during the same 2-week period, and at least one symptom should either be depressed mood or loss of interest or pleasure. Here I've listed the 8 criteria that are in the DSM-5, and so in order to be diagnosed with depression from like a major depressive disorder or the other depression disorders, the individual must experience 5 or more symptoms in 2-week period. The first one is depressed mood most of the day, nearly every day. Number 2 is markedly diminished interest or pleasure in all or almost all activities most of the day, nearly every day. 3 is significant weight loss when not dieting, or weight gain or decrease or increase in appetite nearly every day. 4, a slowing down of thought and a reduction of physical movement, so usually observable by others, not merely subjective feelings of restlessness or being slowed down. 5 is fatigue or loss of energy nearly every day. 6, feelings of worthlessness or excessive or inappropriate guilt nearly every day. 7, diminished ability to think or concentrate or indecisiveness nearly every day. 8, recurrent thoughts of death without a specific plan or a suicide attempt or a specific plan for committing suicide. So the video that I just showed first on depression, I wanted to incorporate that because it really highlights how difficult it is for somebody with depression. Of course, not everybody has extreme levels, but the 10 things about depression, it's generally accurate, and living with depression is a fairly difficult disorder to live with because it's considered a biopsychosocial disorder. And when you are in the middle of a depressive episode, a lot of times the only thing that you want to do is lay in bed in a dark room and not talk to anyone, not go outside, not see anyone. And interestingly, what helps you come out of that a lot of times is doing exactly what you don't want to do. So for instance, just going outside in the sun for a few minutes helps a lot. Putting on clothes and going to the grocery store and going to see your friends. And for somebody with depression, those tasks are normal everyday tasks to, everybody else. But for somebody with depression, the therapist should give them a lot of compassion and celebrate small things, such as they got out of bed today and they got dressed today and they brushed their teeth and they went outside. While those tasks might be not difficult for everybody else, you know, like I said, it's big for people with depression. So here I've posted a overview of metaframeworks, and the metaframeworks by Brundtland et al. 97 is a postmodern systematic family theory that allows the therapist to explore various systems in an individual or family's life. Metaframeworks say that if the therapist only looks at one part of the equation, the therapist can miss the larger picture of the person's constraint. For instance, if an individual sees a therapist for depression, an individual therapist might only investigate symptoms and solutions for solving that individual's depression. This therapist generally only offers short-term solutions that likely include coping skills to deal with whatever negative life factor caused the depression. So for a therapist who is not looking at the systemic or the overall picture of the person's life, you know, that could include their family situation, it could include work and culture and other things outside of the individual that could be contributing to the person experiencing depression. So a systematic family therapist is going to want to look at other surrounding factors and not just the individual's depression. So they're going to ask more about family and culture and things such as economics and employment and other things that could be affecting that person. This postmodern systems approach includes multiculturalism, feminist theory, and a general systems theory for integrating constraints. Metaframeworks perspective also has a blueprint for therapy and the integration of the use of internal family systems, IFS, which is created by Richard Schwartz. The blueprint for therapy and IFS is integrated into metaframeworks. This integration allows therapists to work with the clients at a systematic and individual levels. Metaframeworks allow the therapist to have a systemic approach to dealing with constraints. Internal family systems theory says that each person has parts, including the self. When the self is not in control, it cannot take effective leadership. Negative thoughts and feelings constrain a person. The negative thoughts might lead to mood disorders or personality disorders. Mood disorders, such as depression, is often constrained by the self losing control. Here's a video on Bowen. So I wanted to show his original video, and he's talking about differentiation of self. Gonna go ahead and play it at the 49 mark because that's when he starts talking. So the blueprint for therapy overview. Brunlin 97 describes the blueprint for therapy in chapter 9 as a therapy style with 4 components. The 4 components of Brunlin's blueprint for therapy are hypothesizing, planning, conversing, and reading feedback. Brunlin says that the 4 components are not the singular existence, but are a work of collaboration between the therapist and the clients. In addition to a partnership between the therapist and the clients, the therapist must attend to each component simultaneously. To use the blueprint, Brunlin 97 says to first focus on the components, then quickly move through the stages without fixating on a particular feature, and finally, constantly read feedback and not become attached to feedback without first hypothesizing various parts of the meta frameworks. Internal family systems overview. Internal family systems theory, also not known as IFS, says that everyone has various parts of themselves. Some of these parts are further labeled as the subparts of our personality, and each person has managers, exiles, firefighters, and self parts. IFS says that the parts become tightly attached to the self when a person has unresolved conflict. Manager parts are the parts that are also called the protector parts. Exiles are the hurtful parts that usually exist from childhood trauma. Painful parts of the exiles can be shame, fear, pain, or any other negative emotion that is tightly held onto because some form of trauma. Firefighter parts are the parts that break away from the exile parts and are what causes a person to protect themselves by overworking or obsessing on various tasks. The self parts are the unique individual who is the whole person or the self. So here is a IFS parts video, and he explains the difference, the exile, manager, and the firefighters. So this video that I just shared was from the creator. He's also one of the authors in the book Metaframeworks. So the guy that was speaking is Richard Schwartz, and some people call him Dick Schwartz. And he was talking about using IFS for depression and how the parts that were created from the depression basically kept you alive, and they served as a function, and you're getting to know your parts. So he was basically saying that you have to be really curious and have a lot of compassion, because like I said before, depression is difficult, very, very difficult disorder. And usually people with depression have a lot of shame and guilt, and a lot of times they have no idea who their self is. And so people with depression just need a lot of curiosity and compassion, like I said. So also in metaframeworks talks about, there's different sections in metaframeworks. There is a section on gender, and gender in metaframeworks looks at various positions in the evolution of gender balance. Some families discussed are traditional, gender aware, polarized, transitioning, and balanced. A lot of the traditional families are, I guess some people might say, old school, where dad went to work and he was the breadwinner, and mom stayed at home with the kids, and she cooked and cleaned. And some people joke, you know, the husband just wants the wife barefoot in the kitchen, pregnant. So that's more of a traditional household. And then according to metaframeworks, the balanced household is where there is more give and take, and the the gender roles are not, okay, I'm a man, I have to take out the garbage. You're a woman, you have to do the dishes. The balanced roles are, okay, um, I'm a man, but I came home early from work today and the dishes need to be done, so I'm going to do the dishes. So that kind of give and take, and negotiations allowed. The roles, the gender roles aren't so strict. Traditional is defined as a family where the male is the primary breadwinner and the female is a stay-at-home caretaker, like I just described. Next is gender aware. Gender aware families have varying awarenesses around gender and usually experience frustrations around traditional gender roles. Polarized families usually experience conflict over gender issues. Both males and females tend to fight and blame each other over role definitions. So one definition I can give, or an explanation I can give over polarized families is, say, say a couple in the household, a man and a woman, and the man is 20 years older than the woman, and the man grew up in a strict traditional household, and uh, that's just how he grew up and his beliefs and his culture. And the woman is 20 years younger, and She is grown up with independence, and she was encouraged to go to school and to make her own decisions, and that the man doesn't have to rule the household, so to speak. So when a man and a woman get together and they have these very opposite and um, differing polarized views, then it can be a lot of conflict. And one way to solve this is by having communication and understanding. And somewhere, someone is going to have to compromise if they want to stay in this relationship. Transition families have some competition, but are more helpful at evolving toward gender balance. Balanced families are more willing to negotiate duties and are aware of stereotypes of genders. So I think in today's time, 2022, most people are becoming more balanced. At least I can only speak from my experience. I'm a white Caucasian female, so I guess from my experience and what I've seen, my interactions or whatever, I think, in my view, that America, especially, is becoming more balanced. Um, of course, we could go on with what just happened with Roe versus Wade, but I'm not going to go there. Um, anyways, I think that um, there is a lot of hope for the future of progression and women breaking glass ceilings and um, just being more women being seen as an equal to the man. Balanced families generally have equal access to finances and households. So a balanced family is probably going to be the man and the woman are both working, they're sharing household duties, and they might even have their own separate checking accounts, and they might have bills split up that they pay, or the woman, the man and the woman might share a bank account, um, but all the money is not looked at as the man's, it's theirs equally. And, if she wants to buy a purse, she doesn't have to ask him first. Well, of course, when you're in a marriage, you want to talk to your partner. If it's like a $500 purse, yeah, that's a large purchase. So it's probably a good idea to talk to your partner. But if it's like a $20 purse, and um, they're both aware of the finances, and she knows that $20 isn't going to be taking food out of their mouth or paying the light bill, then I think that's one thing. So, like I said, balanced families are um, what gender and meta frameworks is working towards. Culture and meta frameworks. The culture meta frameworks assumes that people identify themselves concerning various social contexts, including family, ethnic, racial, religious, regional, economic, educational, gender, sexual orientation, and age. So culture and meta frameworks doesn't just talk about the specific culture that someone came from, but it talks about the bigger picture, I guess you could say. Because as I said a minute ago, culture and meta frameworks also includes education, sexual orientation, religious views, um, how you were brought up, if you were brought up with money or poor or whatever. So all of that is kind of um, included in the culture and meta frameworks. These contexts provide norms, rules, expectations, and values that define acceptable behavior. People often feel constrained by the boundaries set by these contexts, particularly if they do not conform to them. So here's my references, and that was my presentation.